Okay, let's dive into this story. We start with Nora. She's who's really hit rock bottom, overwhelmed by regret, feeling like every choice she's ever made was just wrong.
Yeah, her whole life feels like a mistake to her at this point. And things really come to a head after her cat, Voltaire, dies. That seems to be the final straw.
She feels completely alone, desperate. She tries calling her brother Joe, leaves this quiet, sad voicemail. You just feel the isolation.
Totally. And the scene is set, it's nearly midnight. She's finishing off some wine, looking at these old philosophy books.
But reminders of lost potential, what she feels she could have been.
Exactly. And she writes this note, basically saying she thinks she made life worse for people, that she
Yeah.
has nothing left. She decides she doesn't want to see the next day.
It's heavy stuff. And then, bang on midnight, the clock strikes, and time just stops.
Kind of freezes, yeah. She steps out, it's raining hard, and suddenly there's this building on her street that absolutely was not there before.
Your midnight library. And it feels both expected and utterly weird at the same time.
She goes in, and it's this huge, endless place, just rows and rows of books. Time is stuck at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
And waiting for her is Mrs. Elm, her old school librarian.
The very same. Really kind, calm presence in all this strangeness. And she explains what the library is.
Oh, so what's the deal with it?
Well, the library exists because Nora exists. It's tied to her, specifically to her potential. All those books on the shelves, they're different lives she could have lived.
Based on different choices she could have made.
Precisely. Every choice branches off into a new possibility, a new book on the shelf, and then there's this one particular book right there on the table. Big, heavy thing.
What's that one?
That's her book of regrets. Literally a list of everything she wishes she'd done differently or not done. Big things, small things, it's all in there, kind of jumbled up.
So like, I regret not exercising, next to I regret breaking up with Dan.
Exactly, that kind of mix. And each regret listed in that book, it's a key. It opens the door to the life where she didn't make that choice or did do that thing she regretted not doing.
Wow, okay. So she can just jump into these other lives.
She can try them out. The rule, Mrs. Elm explains, is she stays in a life until she feels genuine disappointment. If that happens, poof, she's back in the library.
And the goal is...
To find a life she's actually happy in, one she wants to stay in.
Okay, so where does she start? What's the first regret she tackles?
Well, one of the big ones mentioned early on is about her ex, Dan. Regretting being cruel, regretting the breakup, regretting not going through with their plan to run a country pub together.
Ah, the pub dream. So that's her first stop.
Yep. Suddenly, she's in that life. Married to Dan, running the Three Horseshoes pub in some lovely little village. It looks perfect, Pub sign swinging, chalkboard outside.
Her neat handwriting advertising quiz night. Wasn't there an article about them making the dream happen?
Yeah, all the picturesque stuff. But the reality inside the pub, inside the marriage, not quite the dream she remembered.
How so?
Dan seems different. Stressed about money, even though it looks okay on the surface, less fun. And all the little things start to grate.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like him hogging the duvet or this really loud gargling noise he makes. His laugh is annoying. His opinions are kind of arrogant. The small stuff that builds up.
The death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of thing.
Exactly. And a really big one. In this life, he'd actively talked her out of pursuing music with her band, The Labyrinths. Said it was bad for her mental health.
Oof. Discouraging her passion.
And she sees it now as, well, maybe a bit manipulative. Like he was holding her back, maybe dismissing her brother Joe's encouragement as selfish. It just wasn't right.
So the dream life starts to sour pretty quickly.
It does. There's this awkward conversation where he mentions someone called Aaron. Seems like maybe there's argument or something. Anyway, Nora just feels the disappointment hit hard.
And she fades back to the library.
Back she goes. And Mrs. Elma's there, kind of gently pointing out maybe people change, or maybe Nora didn't see Dan clearly the first time around.
But Nora's still feeling pretty low.
Right.
Still wants out.
Oh, yeah. She tells Mrs. Elm she still feels useless, like a failure, and the desire to die hasn't gone away just because one alternate life wasn't great.
Okay, so infinite choices. What does she try next?
She goes for something different, a life working at a dog rescue center.
Ah, dogs. That sounds nicer already.
It has its moments. She arrives, someone named Pauline gives her the rundown, which helps cover her confusion. The place smells strongly of dogs and biscuits. She's cleaning out cages. They call them huts.
Any notable dogs?
There's a 3-legged Alsatian called Diesel she meets, and she runs into Dylan, someone she knew from school who works there too.
Sparks fly.
Not really. She finds him nice enough, but, no attraction there. What's interesting is his attitude. He wanted to be a vet, but life got in the way. Now he works at the shelter, and he seems genuinely happy, content with his dogs and his friends in Bedford.
That's a different way of looking at things compared to Nora's feeling of failure.
Right. It's a little seed planted. Maybe happiness isn't about achieving the huge dream. Maybe it's simpler.
Yeah. Does anything weird happen in this dog shelter life?
Well, she sees Ash the surgeon from her original life while she's out running. Another one of those strange overlaps.
And she feels okay in this life?
Not entirely. She realizes she's just stepping into someone else's shoes and it feels wrong. Plus, she notices she has a weirdly high tolerance for alcohol in this reality.
Okay, where does that lead?
She's reading a wine bottle label, actually, about a couple who bought a vineyard, living the dream, and that sparks the next idea.
Off to California wine country.
You got it. Suddenly, she's Nora Martinez, married to a guy named Eduardo, running the Buena Vista vineyard. There's even a magazine article about how they met, used her inheritance, got famous for their Syrah.
So another seemingly successful life.
Totally. She's giving tours, spouting wine jargon, woodiness to the bouquet, vegetal aromas, all that. She looks amazing, tanned, fit, great teeth. Seems pretty sweet. Eduardo's nice too.
But I sense a but coming.
There's always a but, isn't there? It looks great on the outside, but inside, something's off. She asks Eduardo point blank, "Are we happy?"
And?
He says yes, but it doesn't feel connected. She steps outside, feels this gap between them. It's another lesson. The perfect setup doesn't automatically equal happiness.
Okay, so the pub dream failed. The vineyard dream feels hollow. What about the path she almost took with her brother? The music.
The rock star life. Yep, that's next. The timeline where she and Joe didn't give up on their band, the Labyrinths.
This must be a huge contrast to her quiet root life.
Oh, massive. She materializes on stage in São Paulo, Brazil. Huge stadium, thousands of people roaring. She's completely lost. Turns to her bandmates, total strangers, and asks, where are we again?
Smooth. So she's famous.
Mega famous, like 11.3 million Instagram followers famous, looks incredible, apparently a bit of a diva. Her friend Izzy is still sending her whale pictures, though, which is a weirdly grounding detail.
Any celebrity romance.
Yep, she gets a call from Ryan Bailey, some big shot actor she's apparently dating.
And is he her intellectual soulmate?
Not so much. The conversation's awkward. She realizes he's maybe not that deep, their relationship intense, but ultimately pretty shallow. It hammers home that point again.
You can have everything and feel nothing.
Exactly. But then the life takes a much darker turn. She's talking to an interviewer, Marcelo and Ravi, her brother's best friend, who's now in her band.
What does she find out?
She finds out that in this life, her brother Joe died 2 years ago, an overdose.
Oh, wow. That's devastating.
Absolutely floors her. The shock is so intense, it just yanks her straight back to the library. No slow fade this time.
God, that's rough. Back with Mrs. Elm, processing that.
Yeah, she's obviously shattered, and Mrs. Elm gently reminds her that not every single possibility is a good one, and choices have ripple effects. Joe dying in that timeline. It really forces Nora to see how interconnected everything is. It's not just about her anymore.
It really raises the stakes.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that shock, where does she go? Somewhere calmer, maybe?
Sort of. She tries a life based on her academic side. She becomes a glaciologist, ends up in Svalbard, in the Arctic.
Glaciologist. Okay, very different again. What's that like?
Stark, cold, incredibly beautiful, glaciers, endless daylight because it's April. She's actually really accomplished in this life.
Yeah.
Cambridge Masters, writing a book on Thoreau, published important research, invited speaker at conferences.
Impressive. But I'm guessing academic success isn't the main event here either.
The main event is a polar bear.
Seriously, a polar bear encounter.
Yep. Pure terror, staring death in the face. And in that moment, she feels this overwhelming, undeniable will to live. Just raw survival instinct.
Which is a problem for getting back to the library, right? She needs disappointment, not fear.
Exactly. She doesn't want to leave this life. She wants to survive it. But the intensity of the fear is maybe blocking the disappointment. It gets complicated. But then something else happens.
What?
She meets Hugo, another glaciologist there. And he drops a bombshell. He's like her. He's a slider, too. He visits different lives.
Whoa, she's not alone?
Suddenly, no. Huge moment. He even has his own theory about it, links it to quantum physics, the many worlds idea. His version of the library is apparently an old video store in France where lives are VHS tapes.
That's wild. They must connect over this shared madness.
Instantly. And Hugo points something out, her book of regrets. It's getting lighter.
Meaning,
Meaning maybe experiencing these lives, facing the regrets, is actually helping her process them, letting them go in a way. They talk about purpose, connection, big stuff. They even share a kiss. Just a pleasant sensation, but something she felt free enough to do.
so she's learning, processing. And Mrs. Elm drops some wisdom around this time, too.
Yeah, a really important line. Never underestimate the big importance of small things.
Shifting focus from the huge life changes to the little details.
Seems like it, because her next choice isn't about fixing a massive career regret or anything. It's small. She focuses on regretting not saying yes when Ash asked her for coffee years ago.
Ash, the surgeon she keeps bumping into in other lives.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So she chooses the life where she did say yes.
And where does she land?
Wakes up in bed next to a guy, feels normal, maybe a bit tired, sees rings on her finger, thinks it might be Ash.
No.
Then she hears a little voice, Mommy. A child, Molly, had a nightmare about bears.
Oh my God. She has a daughter.
Yep. She goes to Molly, comforts her, says there are no bears, kind of echoing her own polar bear scare. And holding this little girl's hand, it's this instant, deep, almost overwhelming connection. This is her daughter.
Wow. Okay, so this life starts to take shape.
It does. Ash wakes up, brings her coffee, confirms he's her husband, Molly's dad. He calls her Nor. She learns he's a surgeon. They have a dog called Plato. She looks around the house.
Finds a book she loves. Thoreau nature writing.
Exactly. And her own manuscript on Thoreau. She actually pursued her passion for philosophy and writing in this life. She looks in the mirror and sees someone normal, healthy, kind of content, like a grown-up who knows herself.
And the sources describe these lovely, ordinary moments.
Yeah, really simple things. Feeding ducks with Molly, she has to use Google Maps to find the park. Pushing her on a swing. Ash being endearingly nerdy, telling gross-out facts and bad jokes, singing badly, sharing the nighttime parenting duties. It feels real.
Connected, loving. Izzy's still in this life, too.
Still sending whale pics. Nora feels really grateful for this life, for Ash, for Molly. Just simple joy and laughter.
But it can't be perfect, surely. She's technically an imposter?
Right, and that causes friction. She keeps forgetting things, their anniversary, movies they saw, where the bikes are kept. She gets into his side of the bed, wears his slippers, little slips.
Does Ash notice?
He does. He gets concerned, gently suggests maybe she should see a doctor. She even tries explaining the parallel universe thing to him.
How does he take that?
He listens, which is huge. Doesn't dismiss her, even if he can't really grasp it. It's comforting.
And her brother Joe. How's he doing in this timeline?
He's doing well. He's a sound engineer living in London, happy. He came out, dealt with the dad stuff. And Nora, using everything she's learned, actually gives him advice about a guy he likes, Ewan.
Full circle. She's helping him now.
Exactly. She's becoming more present. The slips get less frequent. This life feels good. Like maybe this is the one.
But something happens to disrupt it.
Yeah. A small accident, but with big consequences for Nora. Molly falls off her trek in the garden, scrapes her forehead.
Oh, no. Is she okay?
She is, mostly. Scared and hurt, but she keeps saying, I'm all right, I'm all right. This little kid's resilience really hits Nora hard, inspires her.
But it triggers something else in Nora.
It does. She feels the connection to this life weaken, like the library is pulling harder. She senses something's happening back in her original life, her root life. Time is running out here.
She feels herself being pulled back towards her old reality.
Yeah, she even visits her old street, Bankrow Avenue. It looks different. Mr. Banerjee's house is tidier. She sees Carrie Ann from the corner shop looking stressed with her kids. Not the happy figure Nora had imagined in her own misery.
And her old flat.
She looks up at the window and sees someone else, not her. And she realizes her original self, the Nora who took the overdose, is still there, stuck between life and death. Equidistant, the source calls it.
And she feels worried for her.
For the first time, yeah. Not just self-pity, but actual concern for that version of herself, like she's a separate person. It's a huge shift.
She wants to stay with Ash and Molly, right?
Yeah.
Tells herself this is the best life.
Desperately. But she knows she's fading. Then Ash calls out about the garden flowers needing water, saying, they'll be okay, they're looked after.
And that simple line means everything.
It clicks. Resilience, being cared for, the will to live. The library's pull is too strong. She realizes she has to want her original life back. Not because it was perfect, but because all these other lives showed her the potential that was always in her original life.
Her brother's alive there. Izzy's alive. She hooked that kid at the shop. It wasn't a trap. It was just her perception.
Exactly. A trick of the mind. She doesn't need the rock star fame or the vineyard. She has potential for connection, for growth, right where she started.
So she's yanked back for real this time.
Yeah.
And it's not pleasant.
Not at all. She's back in her flat, incredibly sick from the overdose, can barely move, vomiting, weak, but she fights.
She drags herself out.
Yeah. Manages to get the door open, stumbled out into the rain, makes it to Mr. Banerjee's house next door.
Their neighbor.
Rings his bell, somehow apologizes for doing something stupid, asks him to call an ambulance, then collapses on his doorstep. A final, desperate act to choose life.
And she wakes up where?
In hospital, feeling physically weak, but alive. Better. A nurse is checking on her.
And Joe. Does he come?
He does. He got her voicemail. The hospital called him. He's terrified, emotional. He apologizes for not being there for her, explains his own hidden struggles, pleads with her not to leave existence. It's raw, real connection.
And Nora can now meet him there.
Yes. She even gives him advice again about Ewan, the doctor from the gym. Sensing he's the one for Joe, Joe's amazed, asks how she knows.
And her answer sums it all up.
Perfectly. She remembers Mrs. Elm kind of dissing philosophy and tells Joe, you don't have to understand life, you just have to live it.
Simple, but profound after everything she's seen. So what happens when she gets home?
She's back in her flat, looking out the window at just a normal street. But she feels this incredible sense of wonder, just breathing, just being alive. She sees a picture of a volcano.
And that becomes her new self-image.
Yeah, not a black hole of despair anymore. A volcano. Capable of destruction, sure, but also creation, growth, power. She realizes she can't run from herself or her life. She has to stay, tend to the damage, the wasteland, and consciously choose to grow something new within herself. Plant a forest, as the source puts it.
So the biggest change wasn't finding a different life, but finding a different way to see her own life.
Exactly. It's a journey from wanting to die to desperately wanting to live, realizing that happiness wasn't elsewhere. It was about changing her perspective right where she was. Every life has good and bad, joy and sadness. You can't escape that mix.
The potential was always there, just buried under regret. It's about recognizing the wonder in just...
Yeah, like the book says near the end, the impossible, I suppose, happens via living. Just the act of living itself is where the magic, the potential resides.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? About your own life, your own regrets, maybe your own untapped potential. Because Nora's story kind of shows that no matter where you find yourself standing, that same vast sky, full of possibility, is always right there above you.